My name is Elias Monroe, and I am 54 years old. I was once a renowned rugby player, celebrated for my extraordinary strength and remarkable victories. But all that glory faded into insignificance after a near-death experience that completely transformed my life. In the moments between life and death, I encountered Jesus Christ. With eyes full of love and authority, He revealed to me 5 major events that will unfold in 2025. What I am about to share is not a threat, but a wake-up call. It is a resounding reminder for us to reflect, prepare, and be ready for what lies ahead. I believe that now, more than ever, people need to know this truth to find light and hope in the face of the challenges to come. 22 years ago, my world was shattered when I lost my beloved son, Atticus. He was just 7 years old, a bright and loving boy who filled our home with laughter and light. His death came suddenly, the result of a fever I foolishly dismissed as minor. That day, I was immersed in the height of my rugby season, competing in a crucial match that I thought couldn't be missed. Sarah, my wife, called to tell me Atticus wasn't feeling well, but I brushed it off, assuring her it was nothing serious. I promised to come home after the game, certain he would be fine. But when the final whistle blew and I returned home, it was too late. Atticus was gone. The grief that gripped me in that moment defied words. The weight of guilt bore down on me like a storm. How could I have prioritized a game over my son? How could I face Sarah, knowing I had failed to be there when our child needed me most? I had always believed that I could control life with strength and reason. But in that instant, my illusion of control crumbled. That loss became an open wound that never healed. I couldn't bring myself to continue playing rugby. The sport that had once been my life's passion now felt meaningless. I withdrew from the world, isolating myself from everyone, including my family. Each day became an endless cycle of emptiness, with no direction and no hope. Sarah and I continued to share a home, but our connection was lost. We existed side by side as shadows of our former selves, each trapped in our own silent sorrow. The pain was too great to share, and the silence between us grew louder with each passing day. Years turned into decades, and the grief never released its grip on me. Every moment felt haunted by the memory of my failure, by the echo of the life that might have been. I spent sleepless nights replaying that day in my mind, imagining the countless ways I could have chosen differently. The what-ifs consumed me, and I found no escape. Then, on an ordinary day in October 2024, everything changed. Our roof needed repairs, a mundane task I had neglected for years. With no sense of purpose or urgency in my life, I decided to take on the job myself. It felt like just another meaningless task in a life devoid of meaning. But as I climbed onto the roof, I had no idea that this decision would lead to the most extraordinary experience of my life. One misstep was all it took. My foot slipped, and I plunged downward. The ground rushed toward me in a blur, and then nothing. For a brief, chilling moment, it was as if the world had disappeared. Time, space, sound, everything vanished. I felt the sharp jolt of impact, and then an overwhelming silence consumed me. What happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. That fall, which should have marked the end of my life, instead became the beginning of a journey that would change everything. It was in that moment, suspended between life and death, that I embarked on a path of revelation, forgiveness, and divine purpose, a path I am here to share with you now. When I opened my eyes, I found myself drifting in an endless void of darkness. Time and space seemed to dissolve, leaving only an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Just as despair began to creep in, a gentle light emerged in the distance, soft and warm. Unlike anything I had ever known, it radiated a profound peace, a tranquility so deep that it wrapped around me like a soothing embrace. I felt an irresistible pull toward it, as though it was calling me home. As I moved closer to the light, a figure began to materialize before me. My heart raced as recognition struck. It was Attakis. But he wasn't the frail, sickly boy I remembered. Before me stood a radiant being, vibrant and perfect, exuding an otherworldly glow. He looked as though he had been reborn, free of pain, as pure and serene as an angel. Tears streamed down my face as I rushed to him, unable to contain the torrent of emotions flooding through me. I held him tightly, the hug I had longed for in the countless sleepless nights of regret and grief. With a trembling voice, I whispered the apology I had carried in my heart for over 2 decades. The words I had never been able to say. "I'm so sorry, my son." Attakis smiled, his expression filled with a love and understanding that seemed far too profound for a child. In a voice soft yet unwavering, he replied, "Dad, don't be sad anymore. I'm so happy. I've always been here." His words shattered the chains of guilt that had bound me for so long, replacing them with a strange, unfamiliar lightness. I wept, not from sorrow but from a sense of release, a liberation born from his forgiveness. As I held him, the light surrounding Attakis began to shift, growing more intense and powerful. It was not blinding, but instead carried a weight and presence that commanded attention. Then, from within this radiant brilliance, another figure emerged. My knees buckled as I realized who it was: Jesus Christ. He stood before me, his eyes filled with a love so profound it defied description. Those eyes held no judgment, only compassion and understanding, as if he could see every corner of my broken heart and still loved me unconditionally. His presence radiated an overwhelming sense of peace, yet it was paired with an undeniable authority. "Elias," he called my name, his voice gentle yet resonating with power, like a melody that reached the deepest parts of my soul. "There is a mission I have for you." He revealed to me 5 monumental events that would take place in 2025, events that would change the world and test humanity's faith. His words carried both urgency and hope. I knew in that moment that this was not just a vision but a sacred calling. It was my duty to share what I had seen, to warn and prepare others for what was to come. The light around us grew stronger, enveloping everything in its warmth. And just as suddenly as it had appeared, the vision began to fade, leaving me with a profound sense of purpose. I had been entrusted with a divine mission, one that I could not ignore. My journey of redemption, forgiveness, and faith had just begun. The Great Deception. In the first vision, I saw a city resembling New York, dazzling with lights and movement. Yet, beneath the grandeur, a heavy unease lingered. At the heart of it stood a radiant being, cloaked in light so bright it appeared divine. But its cold, lifeless eyes betrayed its true nature. It claimed to be the true light, promising happiness, and the crowd was mesmerized. losing their vitality and becoming emotionless shadows. Jesus stood beside me, his voice filled with sorrow. This is the great deception. Many will follow this false light, believing they have found truth, but it is a trap that will lead them away from me. The Great Awakening. Next, I witnessed a wave of transformation. People who had once rejected God opened their hearts, their eyes now shining with recognition of His truth. Communities turned to faith, and hope spread like wildfire. Yet, this awakening brought fierce resistance from those clinging to power and selfishness. Believers faced persecution and division, but they stood firm. Jesus said, "This is the Great Awakening. Those who turn to me will endure trials, but the light will prevail, and the truth will overcome the darkness." A time of purification. I saw families torn apart by anger, mistrust, and unresolved pain. Words of bitterness had built walls too high to climb. Yet, glimmers of reconciliation emerged. A father embracing his child. A couple forgiving each other after years of resentment. Healing began with acts of love and forgiveness. Jesus spoke gently but firmly. This is a time of purification. People must confront their hearts and choose between love and hatred. Only those who embrace love will find true peace. The return of Jesus Christ. I was shown the glorious return of Jesus Christ, descending from the heavens in radiant light. Humanity stood before him, their faces reflecting joy, hope, or regret. The faithful were embraced with love and peace, while those who rejected him faced judgment. Yet, even in this, Jesus' gaze held compassion. He said, "This is the moment of judgment. The faithful will find eternal joy, but those who rejected the light must face the consequences. Still, my mercy endures for those who choose to return." Signs in the sky. The sky was alive with wonders, a massive golden cross, radiant beams, and trumpets echoing from the heavens. These signs were undeniable, a final call for humanity to turn to God. Jesus explained, "These are the last reminders so no one can say they were not warned. Let these signs awaken their hearts and lead them to me before it is too late." These 5 events are both warnings and promises. They reveal the trials ahead and the hope for those who choose faith, love, and light. Jesus' message is clear. Time is short, but his mercy endures. Let us prepare our hearts, turn to him, and trust in his eternal love before it is too late. He looked at me with eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the universe, overflowing with love, compassion, and a deep, unshakable sorrow for humanity. His gaze was not one of judgment, but of profound understanding, as though he saw every flaw, every regret, and every hidden pain within me, and still chose to love me without condition. His voice, when he spoke, resonated with a gentle yet undeniable power that seemed to echo through every corner of my soul. Remind humanity that the time of grace is not eternal. Turn back to me before it is too late. I am always here, waiting for them with love and forgiveness. Each word he spoke carried immense weight, a divine urgency that could not be ignored. It was not merely a command. It was a heartfelt plea, an invitation from the Creator to his creation. His tone was filled with both hope and sorrow, as if he grieved for the countless souls who continued to turn away from him, yet still held out hope that they might return. As his words settled within me, I could feel the enormity of what he was asking. This was not just a message for me. It was for all of humanity. He was calling on us to recognize the preciousness of this time, the time of grace, a fleeting opportunity for humanity to repent, to reconcile, and to embrace His love before it was too late. Though His mercy is infinite, the chance to respond to it is not. I saw flashes of a world distracted and consumed by fleeting desires. People were so caught up in the noise of life that they couldn't hear the gentle call of His voice. Yet, even in the face of rejection and indifference, He remained steadfast, waiting patiently for each soul to turn back to Him. His love, I realized, was an unrelenting force, reaching out even to those who had wandered the farthest from His light. Tell them, He continued, His voice softer now, almost breaking under the weight of emotion, that my heart aches for those who are lost. I long for them to know the peace and joy that only I can give. But they must choose me. They must open their hearts and allow my love to enter. He paused, his eyes searching mine as though He wanted to ensure that I truly understood the gravity of His words. The time of grace will not last forever. Elias, He said, His tone firm yet filled with compassion. I have given them this time as a gift, a chance to turn away from the darkness and walk toward the light. But that window is closing. Soon, the choices they have made will determine their eternity. In that moment, I felt both the weight of His sorrow and the power of His hope. His love was so profound, so boundless, that even in the face of humanity's rebellion, He continued to reach out. Yet, His words were clear. This was not a time to delay or remain complacent. It was a call to action, a plea for humanity to recognize the urgency of the moment. As I stood there, overwhelmed by the enormity of His message, I realized that His love was not just a passive force. It was active, reaching, and relentless. It was a love that refused to give up, even on those who had long turned their backs on Him. Elias, He said, His voice softening again, remind them that I am here. I have always been here. I wait with open arms, ready to forgive, ready to heal, and ready to restore. But they must choose me. They must seek me while there is still time. Those words, spoken with such tenderness and urgency, etched themselves into my soul. I knew in that moment that this was my mission, to carry His message to the world, to remind every soul of the immeasurable love and forgiveness that awaits them if only they turn back to Him. As His presence enveloped me, I felt a peace unlike anything I had ever known. Yet, within that peace was a sense of divine urgency, a reminder that this time of grace was a fleeting gift, one that could not be taken for granted. His words were not just a warning, they were a lifeline, extended to all of humanity, urging us to grasp it before it was too late. And so, I am here now, carrying this message with every fiber of my being. The time of grace is now. The door to His love is open, but it will not remain so forever. Turn back to Him, for He is waiting, always waiting, with a love that knows no bounds. I woke up in the hospital, gasping for breath, my body aching as though it had been through a storm. The first thing I saw was Sarah, my wife, her face a mixture of shock, relief, and overwhelming emotion. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clung to me, her embrace trembling yet fierce, as if she feared I might slip away again. "You're back," she whispered between sobs. "I thought I'd lost you forever." The doctors explained to me what had happened. I had been clinically dead for 13 minutes. My heart had stopped, and by all accounts, I should not have survived, let alone returned with full consciousness. Yet here I was, alive, breathing, and profoundly changed. They called it a miracle, something that defied medical explanation. As I lay in that hospital bed, flashes of my experience beyond this world filled my mind. The light, the overwhelming peace, the voice of Jesus, and the radiant presence of Attakis, all of it came rushing back. I felt an intense urge to share everything I had seen and heard. Turning to Sarah, I began to recount my journey, the fall, the darkness, the light, and the sacred revelations I had been given. At first, she listened with disbelief. Her expression shifted from concern to confusion as she tried to reconcile my words with the man she had known for years. "Elias, are you sure this wasn't just a hallucination? You went through so much. Maybe your mind was just trying to make sense of it all," she said gently, as though afraid her doubt might hurt me. But something was different. I could see it in her eyes. She noticed the change in me. I wasn't the same man who had climbed that roof days ago. The bitterness, the guilt, and the despair that had weighed me down for years were gone. In their place was a calm resolve, a newfound sense of purpose that I couldn't hide. "I know it's hard to believe," I told her, my voice steady yet filled with emotion. "But this wasn't just a dream or a figment of my imagination. I was there. Sarah, I saw him. I spoke to him, and he has given me a mission. A message I cannot keep to myself." Over time, the changes in me began to speak louder than my words. My outlook on life, my interactions with Sarah, and even the way I carried myself were transformed. The man who had once been consumed by regret and isolation was now filled with a deep sense of peace and hope. Slowly, Sarah's skepticism began to fade. She couldn't deny that something extraordinary had happened. "You're different," she admitted one evening, her voice soft but thoughtful. "I don't fully understand it, but I can see it in you. Whatever you experienced, it's real to you. And maybe that's enough for me to start believing." That moment was a turning point, not just for Sarah, but for me as well. Her hesitant faith gave me the courage to begin sharing my story more openly. It was no longer just a memory or a private experience. It was a calling. Though my physical recovery was slow, my spirit felt renewed. Each day brought new clarity about the mission I had been entrusted with. I knew I had been given a second chance, not just at life, but at fulfilling a divine purpose. What happened in those 13 minutes wasn't just a near-death experience. It was a journey to the very edge of existence and back, carrying with me a message that I now know I must share with the world. One quiet night, as the world outside lay still, I drifted into a dream that felt more vivid than reality itself. In the dream, I saw Attakis, my son, standing under a gentle, golden light that seemed to radiate warmth and peace. He looked exactly as I remembered him from my vision, radiant, whole, and filled with a serenity that was almost otherworldly. His eyes sparkled with a knowing gaze, and a soft smile played on his lips. "Dad," he said, his voice tender but firm, carrying a sense of urgency that pierced my heart. "It's time. You need to tell your story." Before I could respond, a sound filled the air, a chime so pure and resonant it seemed to echo through my very soul. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, a presence, A call. The bells of heaven rang out, not in my ears, but in my spirit, urging me, reminding me of the mission I had been entrusted with. The sound grew louder, filling me with a profound sense of purpose. When I woke up, my heart was racing, my chest tight with emotion. The dream was not just a passing thought, it was a message, a reminder that the time to act was now. I couldn't shake the feeling that every moment of silence, every delay, was a disservice to the divine message I had been given. With the dream fresh in my mind, I sat down and began to write. The words came pouring out of me, every detail of my journey flowing onto the page with a clarity that felt guided. The light, the visions, the warnings, they were all too important to keep to myself. This wasn't just my story. It was a message for humanity, a call to prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. I started sharing my experience, first with those closest to me, and then with anyone willing to listen. At first, there was hesitation. Would people believe me? Would they understand the urgency? But the bells of heaven continued to ring in my heart, urging me forward. Each time I spoke, I could feel the weight of the message lifting, as though it was meant to be carried by many, not just by me. Time, I realized, was slipping through our fingers. Humanity needed to wake up, to recognize the signs, and to prepare for what was coming. The dream, the bells, the words of Attakis, they were not just reminders, they were commands. I could no longer remain silent. This was more than a personal journey. It was a divine mission to bring hope, warning, and preparation to a world on the brink of transformation. And so, I continue to write, to speak, and to share, knowing that every word is a step closer to fulfilling the purpose I was given. This story is not just my personal journey. It is a warning and a beacon of hope for all of us. It serves as a reminder that life's trials and triumphs are fleeting, but the eternal love and grace of God endure forever. Now is the time to turn back to Him, not only in times of trouble, but also in moments of peace. For He is our true source of strength and unshakable peace. The sands of time are slipping away, and the opportunities to choose the path of light are not endless. Yet, there is still hope for those who embrace faith and love with steadfast hearts. If we stand firm, united in trust and devotion to Him, the light of God will guide us through even the darkest of days, leading us to a peace that surpasses all understanding. Let this story ignite a call in your heart to seek Him, to trust in His promises, and to let His love transform you. For in His light, we will find our way, no matter how dark the world may seem. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these powerful stories and creating a space for open, heartfelt conversations. Click the notification bell so you're always updated when we post new content. Together, let's explore the unseen, celebrate the miraculous, and inspire one another to live with love, faith, and wonder